Welcome to Cattle Sense, your weekly podcast. I'm your host, Penny Bowie. Today's podcast is a special celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Junior Beefmaster Breeders Association. But first, hit that subscribe button and share so we can build a large herd of viewers together. I would like to welcome Robert Williams and Theresa Wagner to the show. Hey, guys.
How
Hi.
you doing, Penny?
Theresa Wagner is from Crystal City, Texas. Her late husband, David Wagner, had three children: Jennifer Wagner, Brady, Allison Wagner Wells, and Douglas Wagner, who all were actively involved with the JBBA. All three kids were JBBA officers and directors, as well as Brian Murphy Scholarship winners. Theresa has continuously to stay involved with JBBA by helping out wherever and whenever needed, as well as hauling her grandchildren to various JBBA events across the country. Dr. Robert Williams currently is the Sustainable Livestock Technical Manager at Trust in Food. He earned his BA in Animal Science from Oklahoma State University and at BBU from 1982 to 1987, and was the first director of youth activities for Beefmaster Breeders Universal. This year marks the 40th anniversary of JBBA. I understand the two of you helped get JBBA off the ground. So whose idea was it?
Well, first of all, I started there in 1982, and I was fresh out of Oklahoma State. It was my first job, and Charlie's director of field services. So Charlie Bradbury was actually kind of the first one that I recall said, "Hey, Robert, we ought to think about we had a junior membership, but there were no activities." So Charlie had mentioned to me one day that Robert, let's think about starting a junior association, get some activities started, and you take care of it. And so that's really kind of the first mention, I think. Maybe there were some conversations before that at some point, but that was the first when that really started the ball rolling, I think. And I took it from there, and started putting together our rules and contacting people and trying to figure out what we could do.
Yeah.
So
How about you, Theresa? How'd you get involved?
We were getting in the beef master business in '83, and when they had their first meeting, David and I talked about kids becoming members, and we enrolled them. And the next thing we knew, we had JBBA actively going, and the girls were showing in prospect shows at that time, and you had to haul 5 calves to make a Beefmaster breed. And that's what we did for a couple of years until we got some of our other members involved, like Dal Myers and Kales and Chris Jansen and all of that age group, and just started. Our first show, our first national heifer show, was in San Antonio at Joe Freeman, in conjunction with the South Texas Prospect Show, because we were such a small group and we had 19 heifers there, with Ben Lee and Antonio Pizzini being grand and reserve calves. And I think there were about, Robert, correct me, about 30 kids, I think, that came to convention that year. And membership has grown continuously from then.
yeah, I don't remember how many kids we had that first show. You remember more heifers than I did, than I remember, but we didn't have a lot. And I actually remember calling you, Teresa, one day, and the first show, and asking you to bring heifers, and I think you said, "Well, we can bring one." I said, "Well, this is just as easy to bring two as it is one." And I had these conversations with different folks to try to get cattle there, and we had our headquarters hotel was actually down at the Minger Hotel downtown Kansas City, and that's where we had our convention. But I remember that first show was actually our second conference. So we had our
That's
first
right.
conference the year before with no show because Beefmasters, were anti-show at the time, and we finished that first conference, and then it was a week or 2 weeks. It wasn't very long after that. course, Gene Kuykendall was executive director of the association at the time. Some of you will remember him. And Gene called me into his office and said, Robert, I think to make this work, we're going to have a show. And so I started to work, started making phone calls and started putting it together. And so that led to our first show at our second conference and first national show the next year. So that's kind of the backstory of getting that pulled together. We didn't have a budget either. The board didn't give us a budget to work with, so we had to raise all the funds ourselves. So we went out and we gathered up different sponsors to sponsor things at various auctions that we would have. And we got a really good following and support from members of the association. That was also the reason we put in the AI program, was to try to raise a little bit of funds and also get some quality semen into the hands of the junior members through that. So we put that program together and asked for donations of semen, and I think we charged the junior members $10 a unit of semen. And then all of that money went back into the Junior Association as seed money to help us get started.
That's cool. That's cool. So, how did y'all reach out to the kids at that time when there was no show? Was that through the breeders or?
Well, we knew some, and by word of mouth, people said, well, that they might have some, and we knew they had kids who had kids, and we knew a lot of the kids, and just kind of the network of other folks. Well, you need to call these folks. But I remember our first board members. I'm trying to think back. I don't know if any of our board members actually showed cattle. Our first junior board members. There may have been a few of them, but a lot of them didn't show cattle. I know. And so we just kept working the network, and through folks like Theresa and the folks that they knew that showed cattle, and just people got on the phone. Of course, we didn't have cell phones, right? But people got on the phone, made phone calls, and we built a following.
The Mathis boys were on your first board, and they did not show. They came to each one of the conventions each year and did not have any cattle with them.
Right.
We had Sherry Jennings showed some, and overall, very few of the board members showed to start with.
Yeah.
Our second national show was in Kerrville, and we picked up a few extra kids there. In 1995, we had 160 members overall when the year was over with. And this is information that came out probably from you, Robert, from the office. When we were putting together the 40th reunion stuff, I found one of the old membership registry numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And in 85, we had 160. And by 1989, we worked up to 375 members. And we thought we had a lot of kids at that time.
And it did.
Not all of them showed, but their parents were BBU members or they were involved in some manner.
Mm-hmm.
And our first Bred and Owned recipient was 1987, and that was Tracy Lester.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Lewis and Denise Prescott and David were sitting on the show box, and they came up with the idea of having a Bred and Owned show. And they walked the aisle and came up with some prize money. And if you remember, we threw together a Bred and Owned show right then and there. And then next year it got organized with Tracy being the first actual recipient of the Bred and Owned trophy.
We really wanted to emphasize was the Bred and Owned as we built the program. That's that trophy, that traveling trophy, right?
Yes.
And we put that together. I think you're still using that same traveling trophy today. It looks like in some of the pictures I looked at, and there's a bronze emblem, for the brand on there. And there was a foundry at College Station. I don't know if they still have that up there, if that's still there or not, but I went up to the foundry at College Station, have them make that paperweight, and we use it for bronze on those trophies and plaques. So we got the semen tank, I think, donated for the champion Bred and Owned. The biggest prize money was for the champion Bred and Owned. We really wanted to push, emphasize, the kids raising cattle rather than just going out and buying heifers. That was okay too. But that's what they need to do, but that's fine. But we did want to emphasize that Bred and Owned.
And for a few years, when we first started, we were very fortunate, excuse me, and we had breeders from across the nation donate heifers to our class winners. And those kids took them back the next year, and they had the donated show. But a lot of those calves came back, those heifers came back with babies on them then for the bred and owned show, like the second year. And it
That's
really took
great.
off.
Our sponsor today is Emmons Ranch. Let's hear from Cindy Emmons.
Hi, this is Cindy Emmons. I'd like to invite everyone to our herd production sale on August 17th in Bryan, Texas at the Brazos County Expo Center. On Friday, August 16th, the cattle will be available for viewing from 12 noon on, and at 6:30, we'll have dinner and social with entertainment at the sale site, and it will be in the AC, so it will be nice and cool. Then on Saturday morning, cattle will be available for viewing, and the sale will begin at 11 o'clock a.m., and it will also be in the AC. We'll serve lunch immediately following the sale, and then we'll host a JBBA heifer show immediately following the sale. At the heifer show, we'll be giving out top 15 belt buckles, plus lots of other awards, so we hope all you juniors can make plans to be there for this show. Bruce Robbins and Mike Green will be selling on the cattle. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give one of these guys a call. Anthony Mahosky will be the auctioneer. So we hope to see you August 16th and 17th in College Station, Texas at the Brazos County Expo Center. Thanks.
We have a few guests we want to bring on the show now. Allison Wagner Wells was one of the first JBBA members when JBBA was established in 1984. Allison grew up in the association and continues to be involved with JBBA by serving on the JBBA Adult Committee. Allison and her mother, Theresa, which is above, have attended every national show and convention since the first one in 1986. And Charlie Bradbury is currently working at JBS, the largest food company in the world. Charlie and his wife, Debbie, have a herd of Beefmasters too. He served as chairman of BBU Youth Activities Committee in the early years, and Debbie served as chairman of the committee during the time when there was no staff support. So, how y'all doing?
Good. Doing great.
The first slide I want to show, Charlie, is Brian Murphy. Tell me the story about Brian. Everybody knows it in the breed.
Well, as Robert said, when we really started growing the association, uh, we decided we needed to have a staff person who was strictly devoted to our junior program. And by that time, neither Robert or I were still with the association. I was chairman of the youth activities committee, and Gene Kuykendall found a kid from Kansas. We thought he was crazy. You can't have a kid from Kansas in a Texas association. Ryan had grown up in a small farming town in southeast Kansas and just graduated from Kansas State University and had applied for the job, and everybody ended up being really impressed with him. Uh, he was a guy that would never met a stranger, visited with everybody he knew, carried a set of golf clubs around the trunk of his car just in case he had a chance to play golf while he was working. Uh, he really did a great job. Helped. That's the 80s, especially the late 80s, is when the Beefmaster breed just really exploded in terms of cattle selling for a lot of money and a lot of new membership. I think by the end of that decade, we were close to 5,000 members in BBU, and it was just a really booming time. And so it was a great time for Brian to really grow JBBA. So years later, after he'd been there a couple of years, there was a production sale. Lee Adair was a breeder at the time who was very well known, had spent a lot of money in the business, very unusual guy. Lee was, if you were casting a movie and you needed a Texas oil man, that would have been Lee Adair. I mean, he was just that kind of guy. He just was one of these people, didn't worry about what he couldn't do. knew he could do whatever he wanted to, and he set out to do it. And I think it was his first production sale he had in Houston at the hotel that used to be the Ramada Hotel. It's not even there anymore, but we set up a set of tent and pens, and and people from all over the country were coming to that sale. On Saturday morning before the sale that afternoon, Lee was standing in front of a pen, in front of a heifer and a pen, talking to Brian Murphy. They were just having a conversation. It's a beautiful day, and of course, everybody was excited about the sale later that day. And as they were talking, Brian just dropped dead. Found out later he just had a cardiac arrest. He was probably dead before he hit the ground, and no clue that there was anything wrong with him. Uh, just one of those things that life gets in the way of your plans. And so if you think about that, of course, tragedy, you got this ambulance pulls up, all these people are there, and how you couldn't ask for anything more negative to happen. And so if you put yourself in Lee Adair's shoes, you've got this sale coming up, you got all these people here. What are you going to do? A lot of people would have just gone in their room and not known what to do. But Lee realized that that was one opportunity to make something out of Brian's life that would make a difference. And he turned to us and he said, "We're going to raise some money." And when Lee said things like that, you didn't ask why or what. You said, "Okay." And he got up on the podium that night at his sale and ran the first, I think it was a heifer. I don't even remember what it was. We ran her in the ring, and he announced it to the world that he was forming the Brian Murphy Scholarship Fund, and he was going to raise $100,000. And by God, you better get your money up. And he just had a way of doing that. And he and Dr. Lowell Stonecipher and Russell Burley were really the three people that kind of got together and set that goal. And that night, we raised $65,000, and that by the end of that year, we were over 100,000 in that fund. And so we started proceeds from that fund. It was invested, and we set it up as a 501c, whatever that is, charity. And we have since awarded, I think, close to $450,000 to the first recipient was in 1991, and we've given a one worthy candidate this scholarship every year since then. This year we were able to award the winner $1,800 a semester for 4 years if they keep their grades up. And what's really amazing is the legacy of accomplished young men and women that this scholarship has created. It's just an amazing list, and it keeps going, right? I mean, it's been a huge part of what we do in JBBA. Much more important than who won the show or how many calves you took to the show. It's all about building young people into leaders in our community and our country, and that's what this scholarship has done. And we're going to have a fundraising event this year at our national convention. We haven't raised much money for that fund in a long time, and Casey Ballard and Darrell Glaser, Bar G Beefmasters, have donated a heifer, and we're going to sell her at the awards banquet on Saturday night of this week, and hopefully raise a lot of money to get back in that fund and just keep the good thing going.
Well, that's a good story to have recorded, so everybody will always be able to know the story of Brian Murphy. And I know the Beefmaster breeders have always been generous folks when it comes to things like this. It was sad, but it came out to be a good thing for many, many years. Hey, Allison, I hear that you've been to every convention.
I have. I've been to every national heifer show and convention since 1986. My family didn't make the convention in 1985, which was the very first convention in '85, and then over in Baton Rouge. But since 1986, my mother and I are the only two people that I know of that have made every national show and convention since then. I started showing there in '86. My sister Jennifer had two heifers in the same class, and neither one of those heifers liked me. And my parents, being the supportive parents they are, encouraged me and pretty much just flat out told me, "You will show one of those calves." And being 8 years old, I'm like, okay, not that I really want to, Mom and Dad, but yeah, I'll do it. And both of those calves, like I said, neither one liked me. And the heifer I chose to show, her name was Irene, and she was a kicking machine. And Dr. Randall Grooms was the judge that year. Came up, and I was polite and told Dr. Grooms, this heifer kicks. And about that time, Dr. Groom said, well, if she kicks me, I'm going to kick you. And about that time, I ended up being kicked, and I was under the heifer. Really didn't care for Dr. Grooms much after that for a number of years. And I think some of y'all on this teleconference can relate to that. But I lived, and the rest was history, and it made me a stronger person. And been fortunate to be at every national show since '86, being involved as a junior member, being on the adult committee, and also serving as the adult committee chairman for a number of years.
Well, that's great. That's really good. That's a good story. I bet y'all can tell a lot of stories. Let me hear some of them.
Being JBA, Penny, is good. I mean, it's you not only meet your closest friends, but your friends become family. Um, there's so many stories that I've grown up. I mean, so many junior members and adults that have supported me throughout the years that you know you can call it if you need them. If you're running through a town and you have a flat or you break down, I bet for my family over the years, we always knew where discount tire shops were and who to call when we could call them, because we always seemed that the Wagners were going to have not one or two blowouts on every heifer show trip that we took across the country. We were able to, our family became friends and family with so many people across the country that when we'd go haul cattle to a show in Jackson, Mississippi, or Laurel, Mississippi, or Oklahoma, we always had layover spots, and it's all because of the association and not only the junior members, but the BBU members that became family throughout the years. And I know if I needed something anywhere across the country, I bet you I could find somebody within a couple hours that I can reach out to, and they're going to be there to help my family. And they've been there to help my family.
Well, I bet with this program being going on for 40 years, there's a lot of adults out there now that started in the junior program that are terrific leaders today for a lot of companies.
Yes, I mean, we have people coming out of our junior association that have come on to be lawyers and doctors. Darrell Glaser has a son that's doing his residency there in Temple. He has another son that's starting law school in the fall around Dallas Fort Worth. I know we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have policemen, we have project managers for oil and gas companies. Lots of great has come out of our junior association.
I know I went to one junior convention. There's a little 5-year-old making her first speech. And I tell you, she wound up being president of the association. So she went all the way through it.
There's so many contests that our junior association has to offer nowadays that groom our kids to be better leaders in the future. We have the public speaking contest, which gets the kids out of their comfort zone, talking into groups of adults. We have our herdsman quiz that educates the kids about everyday things going on in agriculture, public policy, different items that you'll need on a daily basis at the house with your cattle. We have a judging contest which teaches kids selection. There's so many things that we do during nationals. We have a carcass contest that I would encourage any BBU member to come and spend the week with these kids. It's not like it used to be last year. I can assure you the cattle have gotten better, but our kids have even gotten better. And I mean, it's what more of society needs today. These kids growing up in these agriculture programs. There's many programs across the country that are well and educate the kids for the future. But I guarantee you, any kind of national heifer shows, anything to do with the agriculture industry, you're gonna have better groomed kids for the future.
That's right. And two, explain to some of these people, Allison, that may not have cattle, that don't know anything, that might be watching this podcast. These kids have to feed these cattle every day, walk the cattle, train them. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. I mean, there's so many kids that choose athletics, which there's nothing wrong with athletics. We have many of our junior members that are very successful athletes as well as show these cattle. But there's a lot to go into it. This is a 24/7 investment. These kids have to get out and go feed them daily. They have to make sure they're exercised and bathed and up to date on vaccinations. And there's so much that goes involved in showing cattle nowadays, Penny. It's not like it used to be, when
Yeah,
I was growing up, which, there's still so many things that the kids have to do, but these cattle have gotten
different.
better over the years, and the kids have gotten way better. It's, again, I encourage anybody to come hang out with these youth for the week at Nationals or any show.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they're very impressive. I was shocked, and this was, years ago when I went. Hey, tell me what breeders really pumped up the Junior Association, like Lee Adair did with the Brian Murphy scholarship.
There were a lot of them, and the thing I remember really about when we started the Junior Association and the members of the association, breeders and what have you, was just the widespread support. We really got a lot of support, and to sit here and say, well, this one or that one, I think would not do justice to everybody that was involved. I mean, certainly there were some people just because of resources and what have you that could do more than some others. But one thing I remember and was what I've always felt fortunate myself for having, getting, starting the Junior Association and getting a good foothold, with the members to start. I've always felt fortunate because of the people we had involved. And I've told, it started out really small. And I've talked to people over the years about that. And I said, I'd rather have 3, 4, 5 kids that really wanted to make it work than 100 that didn't. It wasn't about numbers. It was about the people and their desire to see it happen and see it work and the efforts they put into it. And I think, as we talked earlier about kids coming to the conference and the shows that weren't showing cattle, and they came a lot of miles and made a huge commitment to be there to support, the ones that did show cattle and vice versa. And it was just always the willingness to help each other. And, they were competitive, but I can tell you that if they're out there in the show ring and one kid needed help, the other calf next to it reach over and help. It didn't matter. They were going to help them. And that just willingness of everybody involved to be that way and have that attitude. You hear a lot of stories where that's not the case, but I've always felt fortunate about the Beefmaster Association, the membership, as to how that started and how it got started, and just that widespread support we had of members and kids, throughout.
Well, Charlie, I know your whole family's involved too. You got girls that was in the junior program.
You bet. Yeah, we always looked at it as a great family activity. It forced all of us to be together and learn how to get along and work together. And my girls have all moved on and had great careers doing what they wanted to do, but they got a lot of structure and foundation out of what they learned in JBBA. We tried to build JBBA where it was a lot not just about showing. We have a public speaking contest. Now they have a sales contest, judging contest, all kinds of ways that the kids could distinguish themselves. And some kids are better at some things than others, but as we mentioned earlier, it was set up to where at the national show, the one that won, if you got the most points in all those contests, then you ended up being able to get the certificate to go buy a heifer. We started out with breeders actually donating heifers, and eventually got to where we just had donated money, and those people that were in the top of their divisions would get a $2,500 certificate to go buy a heifer. So that enabled them to build their own herds. And cattle are what are in my herd today, and my kids' herds, and they're just. I think a lot of people have done it that way, where it was a way to get involved in the business of raising those cattle.
Well, Theresa, you got grandchildren in it, not
Yes, ma'am.
kids, but grandkids.
Yes, ma'am. I've had 2 of them that are one's aged out, and Colton did not have a calf in the show this year due to other activities, and his little sister is 3rd grader this year, and she's in full force. I don't know that I will survive her, but I don't. I'm going to try. Charlie's got some grandkids that I'm hoping we'll see along the way there somewhere also. And we were really fortunate that we had a lot I say a number of our old members come back for our 40th reunion. And Mathis, Graham's, helped me out, the Dalmeyers, and Charlie's bunch, and it was just really nice seeing everybody. The Littles, Charles was a past junior committee chairman,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't think who all there are right now, but at the time I counted 6 past junior committee chairs that were there. Charlie and Allison and Charles Little and Debbie, and I'm leaving out. That's right. Sharon Horns were there. And so, I mean, we had JBBA's played a big part in a lot of families across not just Texas, but across the nation. And
that's great. That's good. I got 2 more people I want to bring onto the show. I got Darrell Glaser, is owner of Bar G Ranch. They've been raising Beefmasters for 57 years. And they just finished their JBBA show career with 4 boys, 20 consecutive JBBA nationals. Darrell's been on the JBBA adult committee for 16 years, been chair and co-chair for 10 years. And he wanted me to make sure everybody knew his whole family were Aggies. And then also I got Mackenzie Lee, past 2023-2024 president of JBBA. She's a junior at Tarleton State University, where she's pursuing agricultural communications. She's been a member of JBBA for 10 years. Welcome to the show, y'all.
Howdy.
Thank you for having us.
I hope I didn't mess up that university too bad, Mackenzie.
That'll be okay. Darrell always gives me some trouble for it because it's a sister school of A&M.
Oh, I see.
I'm used to the name calling.
Little sister school.
Yeah. But tell me, Mackenzie, you just got finished serving as JBBA president. Tell me what that was like.
I would have to say it was super humbling and a fulfilling experience, just being able to be someone like a role model that the littles look up to and be involved with them and make them feel seen and heard. But I would have to say it's really, really humbling to the fact that I get to serve them and I get to listen to what they need and what they want to make JBBA even better than it is.
That's great. And Darrell, you just, you got 4 boys?
Yes, ma'am. 4 boys. The youngest just aged out. All 4. 2 of them served as JBBA president, and 2 of them won Brian Murphy scholarships. So they have been very involved with the program.
Yeah, that's great. Great. Tell me some stories. I got all of you on here who's known JBBA for a long time. Tell me the hardest thing that y'all can think of that was the hardest thing to do in JBBA.
Keeping David from chasing his big sisters around the stalls with the pitchfork was one thing.
That's true. That's true. It seems like I remember a Glaser boy in Colton getting lost in West Monroe in the John Deere tractor dealership across the way. We had everybody in the barn looking for them. The whole show almost shut down, and Jeffrey Blair found him, and somebody said all he had to do was think like a 5-year-old, and he knew right where they were, and he was right.
And I'll tell you, that's makes this deal special. Is those 2 boys are still good friends today.
They are.
You know, I remember, Robert, you might remember this when we first started. You know, we were having shows, and we had a show in Austin, and nobody really knew much about showing heifers. And I remember there was a kid came out. He didn't have a show stick. He had a club. It was about that long,
and a nail.
I remember somebody took a broom handle, sawed off the end of a broom, had a broom handle, They knew they're supposed to have a show stick. They didn't really know what they're supposed to do with it or what it was supposed to be, but they had one. And
Yeah.
what one thing that we tried to do and did, I think, is give the kids a lot of leeway to making decisions. And someone said, well, what if they make the wrong decision? Well, we're just there to make sure they don't make a really big one, really big wrong decision. But teach them how to make decisions, teach them how to stand on their feet, teach them how to have responsibility. And what always amazed me about it is how serious those kids would take that responsibility. It wasn't a joke to them. It wasn't, they had fun, but they took that responsibility seriously. And more often than not, they made really good decisions.
Absolutely. One thing that I want to add is this year we're talking a lot about the history and the growth of the program. This year we had 704 head of cattle, 1,595 entries, and 226 participants in our national show in Belton, Texas. So I think it's really since it started back 40 years ago. And I'll say on the podcast, if with Mackenzie, if anybody's watching this and you haven't seen her speech, go to the JBBA page and scroll till you find it, because it was the best closing speech I've ever heard.
Thank you, Darrell.
It was very good.
It was great.
Very
One thing in JBA, it's all about being a family. It's about teaching the kids responsibility, leadership, but most of all, and I know for my family, it's just been a big family atmosphere. Everybody's there to help one another, and if somebody needs something throughout the week or even throughout the year, you can call on a JBA member, parent, or even a BBU member, and they're going to help you out. So many of there's been many people throughout the years that have had hardships in life, and and the JBA family and BBU family's there to help one another. And I'm very fortunate, and I know my mom and my brother and sister and my nieces and nephews are very fortunate to be involved in this association.
What ages does the program start at? At what age does it end?
JBA is open to anybody up to the age of 21 as of January 1st. But in order to show a heifer at nationals or any of our JBA approved shows, you have to be 6. And for each varying state, if you want to show in your state majors, I'm not sure for other states, but I would think it'd be 3rd grade or 8 years of age to show here at our Texas majors. And I would think at the other major shows across the states, you'd have to be 3rd grade. But to come to show at our JBA nationals, you have to be 6 as of January 1 and younger than 21 as of January 1.
Now, can they bring as many heifers as they want?
For our JBA nationals, yes, you can bring as many heifers. We have our E6 Advancer show and as well as a bull show. So however many you can fit in the trailer, load them up, and see you in Mercedes, Texas in 2025.
Well, tell me this, with the breeder, let's say, is it called Bred and On, right? How many people have started Beefmaster herds, having cattle as a youth that's got cattle today, leading up to the program, building up from the program, I guess you could say.
Well, Penny, I'm one of those kids. I'm a first generation beef cattle producer, and I live, we kind of poke fun, but I live in a country subdivision only on 3 acres, and my brother's fortunate enough to work for a big ranch out here, local in Belleville, Texas, and he has some leased land where we can keep our cattle. But I started with my sister, who scrambled when she was 16, and me and her are 6 years apart, so I jumped in right with her, and we are still obviously raising cattle and showing at every Texas major until I aged out, and every national show. We haven't missed one, and JBBA is an incredible organization. We've had some really hard financial struggles over the years, but my parents have still made sure that I got to go to nationals every year. We really love the environment. We love the people. I know you hear us say it all the time, like the cattle are good, but the people are way better. I mean, everyone in here has a story about how they met someone or something happened and they broke down and they called someone. It's a family organization. So I really stress to kids who are first generation or kids who don't come from a big ag background or even a cattle background. If you want to try something, do it. Get a scramble heifer, get a Beefmaster heifer, and come to our national show, because I promise you will not regret it.
Thank you to everybody that supported the Junior Association for the last 40 years, and Hope the support continues through for many more years for our junior program. It's a great program to get your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever involved, or just your neighbor kid. If somebody's interested in showing, like Mackenzie said, highly encourage them to go find a Beefmaster calf and join the association and become a family member.
If what Robert said earlier when it started, how it really, Mackenzie has said the same thing, and Charlie, it's the people that make the difference in this deal. I mean, I think we're different than any other. When you walk through the barn, you see moms and dads and kids doing all the work. You see families helping each other, groups that come that, it's not, we don't have a lot of people with fitters or extra help. It's families. And any one of them are the kind of people you'd let babysit your kids. And I think that kind of sets us apart, I think, and just the culture that we have in the barn. It's still the same as it was when it started. And I think, when you see culture in society today, it's changed so much. But when you go to the Beefmaster show, you see a lot of what we need more of in society, of people taking care of each other, doing the right, good sportsmanship. And I think that kind of sets us apart.
One more story, Penny, that I always remembered, and I don't remember, it was one of the first year or two, and we had meetings in Houston, and we had an adult committee meeting there as well, and so they were there for the meeting, and we had a junior board meeting as well, and I think it was Tom Johnson gave the junior board tickets to the rodeo, and they were box seats, so they had really good seats for the rodeo there at Houston, and Nolan Ryan came walking through. Of course, everybody recognizes Nolan, so that was unique. But it's just, I think, it tells you how the people felt about the junior association. Well, Nolan saw them sitting there, and he stopped and talked to them, shook their hands, talked to them, and I can tell you, those kids, the next day when they told me that story, I mean, it's like they were walking on the moon. And I think that, as I said earlier, just the whole support from the association and making those kids feel special and feel like they had something to offer, and if they meant something to everybody, was really unique, I think, in the breed, and really helped get it off the ground. So I just say the support of not only the kids but the parents and everybody else that were involved, made it work.
It's a good program when you got grandkids coming back.
Yeah.
And then one day it's going to be great grandkids coming back. And so, JBBA is an incredible, valuable organization today, developing young people into leaders for our communities and for the Beefmaster Breeders United. If you have a child interested in showing cattle, the Beefmaster family offers a wonderful program called JBBA. Join their team and watch them grow. Thank you, Robert, Theresa, Charlie, Allison, Darrell, and Mackenzie, for taking us on a trip down memory lane. To our Cattle Sense viewers, thank you for your interest in Cattle Sense. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're building a large herd of viewers together. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you.